What is going on, everyone? Welcome to GraeMMA. If you're into UFC, you come to the right place. Here you'll find fight predictions, rankings, breakdowns, and my thoughts on everything happening in the MMA world. I've been a diehard UFC fan for about 6 years now, and I'm excited to share my opinions with you all. If that sounds like something you would enjoy, consider subscribing and make sure to hit that like button. Along with my breakdowns, I'm also going to be providing 3 fight of the nights, one for the early prelims, one for the prelims, and obviously one for the main card. Along with that, I'm also going to add a thing called Graham's Gamble. I'm going to give you possibly a hot take that maybe not everyone sees eye to eye with, but to me, I'm going to take that chance. With that being said, let's get into my UFC Fight Night Baku predictions, Fiziev versus Torres. Let's start with the first fight of the night, or should I say morning, for us NA people. We have a welterweight bout between Tahir Abdullayev and Jefferson Nascimento. Nascimento holds a record of 13-0. That's fucking nuts. He has 5 knockouts, 3 subs, and 5 decisions. All of his submissions are different, which is very interesting to me, and also makes me realize that he's probably good on the ground. Not only that, but he's good on the feet too, as he has 5 knockouts. So, I'm very intrigued to see where this fight goes with him, as he's pretty well-rounded. My biggest thing with Jefferson is that he has been fighting in lightweight for the past 4 years. Yet, before that, obviously with him being an undefeated fighter, he was also fighting in welterweight before that. So I don't know if that's a red flag or not. That's up to viewers' discretion. Needless to say, obviously he's undefeated, so I wouldn't be too worried about it. Across the cage from him is Tahir Abdullayev, a 21-3 mixed martial artist fighting out of Russia, coming off a 4-fight winning streak with 3 submissions and a TKO. I watched a bit of tape from him, and it looked like he had a pretty good kicking game. I'm interested to see how it ends up working against Jefferson, as I think Jefferson might counter it and take him down. And that'll come to a ground game. And Jefferson has yet to lose via submission. Therefore, I'm very intrigued to see how Tahir deals with it, as he has lost via submission. So, with that being said, I think they should raise a red flag for people, but Tahir has a win against a dude who was 7-7 that ended up being a split. Like, that's concerning to me. That bats an eye, but then again, like, he's on a 4-fight winning streak. This was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Needless to say, though, like, I gotta point that out there. Nonetheless, I think Jefferson gets the job done early. He needs to get it done early. I think it goes submission early for Jefferson. If we get late round 2, even dive into round 3, I think that Tahir low-key could take it, because this is a welterweight fight, keep in mind. Like, Jefferson's been fighting at lightweight for the past 4 years. So not only that you're going up in weight, but like if you're grappling and stuff with this guy, because both of these guys have decent submission wins, you're going to get tired. And I think Tahir might try to take advantage of that. So I'm going to say Jefferson sub Jefferson sub. I could say Tahir TKO low key. Or Jefferson decision. I really think Jefferson needs the first 2 rounds. Like, he needs them. If he doesn't, he needs to survive the 3rd. But I could be wrong. Like, I could, like, eat my words and Jefferson's fine at welterweight. I think that's my biggest concern, is that he's fighting someone up weight. Not only that, he hasn't done it in 4 years. So, only time can tell, but I'm going to take Jefferson by sub or decision. For our next bout, we have Bekzat Almakhan versus Jean Matsumoto. So Jean Matsumoto has a record of 17-2-0 with 3 KOs, 6 subs, and 8 decisions. He has never been finished, but both losses are decisions. He entered the Contender Series and has 3 fights in the UFC, with his first fight coming in April 2024 by guillotine versus Dan Argueta. The rest of his losses are from Rob Font and then Farid Basharat. Farid, I mean, makes sense, but Rob Font is kind of concerning. But he's never been finished, which is usually a good sign. I mean, you're going the distance, usually. Next, we have Bekzat Almakhan, who is a 12-3-0 mixed martial artist with 10 KOs, 1 sub, and 1 decision. His losses come from 2 decisions and 1 submission loss. He fought Umar his very first fight in the UFC and lost via decision. Then he won one to recapitalize and lost again via decision versus the Tuporia brother, Alexandre. To me, like I said previously, I think this is a grappler versus striker match. I want to lean more towards Jean just because he's never been finished, and really and truly, he's not. Almacon is not that good on the ground. Like, he really isn't. Umar laid on him, I'm pretty sure, for quite a bit. So I really think that Jean could win this. I would even say by submission. I think Jean wins this, and I'll take him by submission. Alrighty, so next up we have Daniil Dunchenko versus Theodore Bergen. And I'm not even gonna lie to you, I really don't even have to do much research. This Daniil guy looks terrifying. And by the looks of the MMA community in Tapology, 97% of them agree with me. So even like for Theodore's record, he's on a 2-fight winning streak with 2 losses as well, like before that. I mean, I can't lie, like, I gotta take Dunchenko by KO. I think he gets the job done. Alright, for the next bout, we have Khan Offley versus Javier Reyes. Comparing the two statistics, with Khan being 13-4-1 and Javier being 23-5-0, I think Javier takes this. Either this is going to be a really nice flashy knockout for him, or we're going to see a 15-minute goy slop fight. It's back and forth, but Javier takes it with a decision win. Because really and truly, I really can see Javier putting Khan out. And I could see him going the decision too. I think the only way Khan wins this fight is if he can sweat it out to the end. I don't think he finishes Javier, but I do think he could pull out a decision. But I'm going to take Javier by TKO or by decision. Next, we have Nursultan Ruziboyev versus Andre Pulyev. So, Andre's coming off a loss to Atiba Gauthier, which I mean, like, I feel like we're all aware of who Atiba is. Like, he's got crazy potential. But it was a decision loss. Like, that's impressive nonetheless. And then also he has a loss to CLD, which is also another decision. But he beat Nick Klein to a TKO win, which is impressive nonetheless. Obviously, I mean, like, this is going to be very interesting. Andre's never been submitted, but then again, like, I don't know. He has 6 KOs, but the thing is, Ruziboyev's a tank, man. Like, 20 wins just via submission. He's only gotten KO'd once and subbed once with 7 decision losses. So I think Andre's only, like, chance is to sweat it out to the end. But even then, like, how are you going to do that if you're not, like, laying on him? And this guy's a fucking killer on the ground. So, I mean, I'm going to take Ruziboyev by sub. I think he's going to get the submission done. Does it go the distance? I don't know, but if you want to play it safe, I'd just take the money line. Getting into our next bout is Abdul Rahman Yukayev versus Julius Walker. So Yukayev is he's an undefeated prospect that just, like, I feel like it was recent that he just got out of Contender Series. Yeah, August 2025. So he has 3 KOs, 5 subs, and 1 decision, which he remains undefeated. Both wins in the UFC were rear naked chokes, which is pretty impressive. I feel like he's a very good prospect. I watched his Contender Series match, and to be honest, I was very impressed. I'm really looking forward to see what he can shake up in the light heavyweight division, because I do think he breaks top 15. I do think he breaks top 10. Not only that, he made his mixed martial arts debut in 2021. He's only 25 as well, so he's got plenty of time left. Probably like 10 years, I would say, maybe a bit more. It depends on how long he fights, how consistent he is, and so forth. On the other side, he has plus 330 Julius Walker, who is 7-2-0 with 4 KOs, 2 subs, and 1 decision. With his losses coming from 1 KO loss and 1 decision loss. He's coming off a loss to Dustin Jacoby. I don't know if that's concerning to you guys, but I don't feel like we need to get into it that much, regardless. Also, his Tapology fighting style is ninja shit. And I'm taking Abdul Rahman Yukayev for the win. I think it stays inside the distance, and I think he wins by TKO sub. Alright, next we have Farman? Farm Man Hazanov versus Eric Nolan. Eric Nolan, 8-4-0 at a plus 135. You know, you got good value. 4 KOs, 2 subs, 2 decisions. He has 2 submission losses and 2 decision losses. His first UFC bout was in August 2025 when he lost to Susikayev. I think if you guys are tapped into the UFC, you guys know who I'm talking about. It was a fight on 9 days notice. So I mean, like, it was 4 days. It was 4 days notice, even worse. And to be fair, that first round, like towards the end, Eric Nolan was, I don't want to say it, but he was kind of having his way. Until the second round where he just kind of got laid on and then submitted, of course. But I mean, still, there was life to someone that was entering the fight at a minus 900. If I was watching that first round and I had Susikayev, I would be a bit worried. Nonetheless, he's fighting at welterweight, which is his natural weight class. He hasn't fought there yet in the UFC. So maybe it'll help him, like he'll get like regulated, you know what I'm saying? He has great hands. The takedown defense wasn't terrible for someone who is known for their wrestling. You know what I mean? Cuz I mean, Susikayev was a killer on the ground. I think once he gets to the ground, I would be worried. But other than that, if he can stay up, I think, you know, it could go in his favor. But across from him, he has Farman Hasanov, who's 5-0-0 at a minus 155, who's undefeated professionally with 2 KOs and 1 decision win. But he has, listen to this, an amateur loss via head kick. So this is his UFC debut, which is pretty interesting. He has decent wrestling with aggressive striking. So I think this is a great stylistic matchup. It's going to be a striking match for sure, I think. And if I were to take someone, I think I'd take Farman by TKO. I just think he's better rounded. I don't know. Like, I feel like he could definitely take him down and play with Eric Nolan. But needless to say, only time can tell, right? If I were to put a prop, I would say fight ends in TKO decision, kind of like last one. But I would not be surprised at all if it does end up just as a KO. I also wouldn't put it past if it went the distance either. So take that as you wish, right? Yo, I'm just working on the video right now. I would have picked Farman. You know how it is. I'm gonna put my main card picks just here for a few seconds, so thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna post a results video. I'm hoping to try to work on it by like Sunday, Monday. So expect that to come out probably midweek. Thank you so much if you've actually made it to the end, considering this is my first ever YouTube video.